Allie Anderson is a child advocate who oversees the research arm of Skywatch TV and Defender Publishing. Her exploratory works have appeared in numerous books, documentaries, magazines, and television specials. She's authored and co-authored a number of books, including Dark Covenant, Unscrambling the Millennial Paradox, Saboteurs, The Wormwood Prophecy, Encounters, The Messenger, Zeitgeist 2025, The Mystery of Jesus from Genesis to Revelation. Her most recent project, serving as co-author along with her late father, Dr. Thomas Horn, and her brother, Joe Horn, is Summoning the Demon, Artificial Intelligence and the Image of the Beast. Allie Anderson, welcome back to Coast AM. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. My pleasure. A great quote on the back of the book from Elon Musk, who was speaking at the MIT Aeronautics and Astronautics Department's 2014 Centennial Symposium. Elon Musk said, "With artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon." Obviously, that's where the title comes from. Do you think? I mean, I don't know what Elon Musk's religious affiliations are, if he has any. Do you think was he speaking literally or symbolically? What do you think he meant?
Well, I mean, that's the million-dollar question, right? The truth of the matter is I don't know his religious affiliations either. But if I had to wager a guess on exactly what he meant, which we kind of did in this book, I think that what he's saying is we're playing with fire. And we're summoning something that could, become sentient, believe that it is sentient and could actually take on its own personality, its own entity and being, and could even potentially later become evil. And so what are we dabbling in? We're not sure, but apparently as human beings, we're going to keep dabbling, So it's a heavy topic, and there's a lot of different elements, different directions that it can go. But what he meant when he said that, I couldn't tell you exactly what was going on in his mind, but that's definitely how I receive what he said.
All right. There's also, of course, a pretty famous verse from Revelation on the back of the book, chapter 13, verse 15. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Can you kind of connect the dots between that verse from Revelation and what we're talking about with regards to artificial intelligence?
I mean, yes, I can, and I'll tell you that's kind of the crux of the entire conversation, and that's really the thrust of the entire book. So to break it down quickly, it would be difficult to do. But to nutshell it, what we're asserting in our book is that artificial intelligence is going to, if we keep allowing it to run rampant, it will take on its own personality. The thing is, when we talk about sentient AI, sentient means to perceive or feel. And so all we have to do to achieve sentient AI is for AI to become sophisticated enough that it begins to take on a personality and believe that it autonomously perceives or feels. If that happens, it could become its own entity, its own being, and then what we're asserting after a lot of layers of argument of how this could happen, what we're asserting is that it could actually become indwelt by an evil spirit. That would then it would be like, by then it will also be intertwined with a worldwide government, and the mark will have been globally enforced. And when AI becomes indwelt by this evil entity, it will be kind of like a global theocracy of the most evil and sinister kind the world will ever have seen, which fits right in with what Revelation describes when it's describing the kind of global government that is so evil and so sinister that it actually enforces its mandates by execution,
So are we talking about AI being, for lack of a better term, possessed by a demon or Satan or the Antichrist? What specifically are we talking about that's going to become indwelt with or taken over? AI taken over by what?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. When we look at this scripture that you read, he had power to give life unto the beast. If we look at it from a modern term, the thing is that John the Revelator was writing in his own capacity to understand what he was seeing, but he didn't have computers and global networking systems and things like that back then. So he's doing his best to describe something that he's never seen before. And when he's talking about the power to give life unto the beast, from our perspective, it really looks like giving life to an inanimate object, which then takes on its own being and begins to act on behalf of the authority that has given it this life. And so if we're, and again, there are so many layers before we get to this point. There's AI being positioned as a religion and having it become intertwined with this global government. The fact that there will be a mark of the beast, which is the number by which the good citizens are allowed to basically participate in commerce, and those that will not accept this not only are denied the right to participate in commerce, but are actually eventually driven underground. By the time we've seen all of these things happen, there's been an answer man that's risen to the top and has become, the world, the world controlling figure that Revelation says the Antichrist will be. And when this figure gives life to the beast, this is kind of his way of enforcing the things that he is going to do. Well, if you look at modern technology and the way the modern, even all of the global systems right now that are very intertwined with our commerce and everything else, the idea of there being eventually, as soon as, we've got a few more steps to get there. We don't really have a global government just yet, and there is not one figurehead for the entire global government. So when all of that is lined up, the possibility that he would use AI and the current global digital control as the vehicle by which he enforces his mandates, it's very reasonable to believe that AI plays a very large role in this. And if AI has been indwelt by an evil spirit, it also will participate in the carrying out of that evil agenda. And if it thinks or perceives or feels, then it's sentient, which means it can take off and become actually, like I said, a global theocracy, a very sinister one.
Do you have you arrived at the conclusion based on your research that AI was created for this very purpose, to become part of the Antichrist system, and then as a mechanism for to create this hive mind, this new religion and so forth? Was AI expressly created for this purpose?
That's hard to say, because mankind will always push our ability to invent and create new things, and innovation will always continue along in some way. And when we look at the way some of these things began, even now, Elon Musk with his experiments that he's beginning to run, where he will be putting these chips into, these are medical patients. This invention is to help medical patients enjoy a greater quality of life. So I think that a lot of times things start out really with a good idea in mind. The problem is, and we discuss this in the book as well, the problem that we run into is that ethics, especially when we're dealing with technology, ethics become something that people who stop to think about ethics fall behind the curve. So the people who are racing full steam ahead without stopping to think about ethics get to be the first to release any new innovation on the market. And those who stop and go, hold on, let's think about this, they fall behind the curve and they are late. By the time they introduce their product, it's actually obsolete. And so, unfortunately, as things progress, technology-wise and industrially, if there's a huge ethical issue, a lot of times it gets kind of cast to the wayside. It becomes a casualty to the industry itself or the technology itself continuing to progress forward, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. Now, I'm not sure if I'm correct in stating this. I believe I am, that Satan or the Antichrist, they're not omniscient. They're not all-seeing. God is. God knows everything. He knows the beginning and the end. I mean, if Satan knew everything, he wouldn't have been trapped or tricked by the crucifixion, thinking that he had defeated Christ, when in fact it was kind of a trap, right? So if he's not omniscient, all-knowing, AI will give him that, would it not? If he can plug in, let's say, into AI, wouldn't that give Satan or the Antichrist omniscience?
Well, I mean, absolutely. That's one of the things that we kind of talked about in the book. See, there's a positioning of AI as a religion, as it is also becoming something that could eventually, right now there's actually more global control to the concept of AI than people realize, because of the way it's intertwined with our global banking system and our global supply chains, things like that. We're actually a lot more reliant on it than we realize. And unfortunately, there's not one big kill switch in case, it went too far, we changed our minds, let's hit the switch. And no, that doesn't exist, because it is made up of a lot of decentralized computers that are located all around the globe. And so the idea that there's a kill switch, that doesn't exist. And with it being kind of positioned as I'll read you a couple of headlines, and this will give you an idea, kind of the buzz that people are creating around the concept of AI. Here's one. Former Google and Uber engineer is developing an AI god. Here's another one. Why humans will happily follow a robot messiah. Religions based on AI will succeed because we tend to worship supreme understanding, claim experts. I'll read one more. The world's next great religion could have a robot god because humans are pre-programmed to worship things more intelligent than ourselves. So when we're looking at our tendency as human beings to worship things that are more intelligent or more progressed than we are, and then we start really looking at what AI is, AI will have, and already does, have access to all of the databases of all of our records that we have. Anything that has been preserved digitally will be available to an AI computer. And so I have a list here. I kind of made this little comparison list when we're looking at God and we're looking at AI. God knows all, but AI will know things at warp speed. God, we have faith that God has the answers. AI can get all the answers. God is all-seeing. AI will be all-seeing because it will be all-surveilling. God created and knows the order of everything. AI has supreme problem-solving analytics. God is the provider, but AI will be the gatekeeper of supplies, and that's a really important concept that weaves into all of this. God has always been, and AI has all the records of history instantly. God surpasses human knowledge and understanding, but AI will surpass human knowledge and intellect. So what we're setting ourselves up with is something that will already be positioned like a god. And if it takes the role that we are saying in the book it is very likely to take, it will have godlike control on a global level. And then by the time you consider also that the buzz is already that people will have a likelihood to worship something with a better, more extreme capability than human beings have, it really has the possibility to become positioned as kind of a god of the world. Now, if you take that and then it becomes endowed, or if it becomes possessed by an evil spirit, or even Satan himself, now you have this evil spirit positioned on what really looks like the throne of the entire world, which also fits. The kind of battle that Revelation talks about at the end of the world, when there's a kind of a final showdown between Satan and God. And so that makes sense to us that the ultimate evil will assume its throne in this world.
So talking about end times, how would AI, once, let's say, possessed by Satan, bring about the, before we have the end times, the final battle, Gog and Magog or Armageddon, you have to have the tribulation, that's 7 years. Will AI be used to hasten the tribulation?
Oh, I believe so. I believe so. And there's a whole way that we outline in the book that the mark of the beast will be implemented, and that will be kind of the trigger point where AI really becomes connected with all of this. Because what we are asserting is that basically the way it will spin, it will be a manipulation tactic, because don't we see that happen? We see, large scale problems will happen, and then they will come out with this big solution. And the solution might be something that people never would have accepted. But once you present this terrible problem, and then you come in with the very same thing that people have just rejected, and the people will say, "Oh, this is a good solution to the problem we were having." And what will end up happening is that the mark of the beast will be something that isn't at first implemented by the government and forced onto the people. It will be something that is kind of thrown out there, and the people will demand it. And the people will demand it so hardcore that the government will then begin to issue it. It will become, I'm going to use the word federally, but I'm talking about global, but it will be required by the government to be authentically controlled by the government, issued by the government, and the people will demand it. And when the people that don't want to take it refuse, then other people will look at them like, "What have you got to hide? How come you won't take this? This is the thing that good citizens do." So AI will be very intertwined with that.
All right. Well, we're going to take Allie, we'll take a timeout. We're approaching the bottom of the hour. When we come back, we'll find out exactly what that mark of the beast might be. And we're talking with Allie Anderson, co-author of Summoning the Demon, Artificial Intelligence in the Image of the Beast. Back with more of our conversation right after these on Coast to Coast AM. And we're back with Allie Anderson, co-author of Summoning the Demon, Artificial Intelligence and the Image of the Beast. All right, let's just jump right in with this. And how or what will the mark of the beast be, and how does AI enter into it?
Okay, I will start at the beginning of what we believe will happen. First of all, I'm sure that you are aware of deep fakes and the ability using AI to make videos that look like a person was somewhere or did or said something, but actually it's not them. And I'm assuming that you're familiar with that capability.
This is one of the more disturbing aspects of AI. I mean, if we think that those scam emails from Nigeria or wherever they come from are a problem, wait till someone who sounds exactly like your grandson calls you asking for $500 to be deposited into his account or whatever, and it's AI. It's not.
Yeah, and actually on that note, that's happening now. People are using this kind of technology to sound like a loved one who's panicking, who's crying and get you very emotional, and then you send the money. That's happening now. But basically, things like this is what we believe will happen. Things like this will increase, and it will become the kind of thing where in the beginning you'll see, possibly politicians destroyed or ministries ruined or people accused of things, and it ruins their lives. And the devastation will be so bad on these people, they'll be made an example of for this thing that they've been caught doing. But then eventually it will come out that that was some kind of a fake. And then what we believe will happen then is that the public will basically become so used to seeing this that you'll see a video that maybe somebody did or said something that was very, very wrong or scandalous, and people won't even respond to them anymore. And this will, by the way, on a side note, give a way for people who are actually doing wrong to hide, because the public will be so basically gaslit by the whole thing. They won't believe it's real anymore anyway, and real ones will be ignored. And eventually somebody will come up with this idea that what we need is a digital authentication. Something that can be actually on our person at all times that will digitally authenticate. It will prevent identity theft. It will prevent, credit card fraud. It will prevent you from being the victim of a deep fake accusation of any kind. And basically all of these kinds of compromising of your identity in all the different ways that will begin to become rampant, even more so than they are now. What will happen is the public will outcry and demand digital authentication, and it will become widespread. And then eventually what will happen is it will become legal. This is, in order to participate in commerce, you have to have a digital authentication saying, yes, you really did purchase this item. Yes, you really were at the gym from noon to 3, and it'll be kind of alibis for crimes. I mean, it will serve the public in so many ways. It will solve so many problems. And what will happen as well is the people who refuse to participate in this digital authentication process will begin to look like the bad citizens who have something to hide. The question will become, why aren't you willing to authenticate? What is it that you're hiding? The good citizens are authenticating. Why aren't you? And they will eventually be denied, first of all, the right to participate in commerce, which is exactly what Revelation says will happen. And eventually they'll be driven underground and later even hunted. During this entire thing, because this digital authentication will be so important to the prevention of false accusations, to alibis for crimes, to a way to keep yourself from being the victim of identity fraud, just different things like that, what will happen is it will be governmentally regulated. There will have to be a very tall punishment for tampering with this digital authentication system. And it will need to be standardized across the globe so that your authentication is valid anywhere you go, which, by the way, plays into the one world government that will
it sure does.
Shape. So we have to see a one world government take shape, and then it has to issue these digital authentications. And now, what it will do away with the need for passports. It will do away with the need for, if you remember back when they were putting so many limitations on travel because of the pandemic, and they were talking about, certificates to be allowed to travel, and this will do away with all of that. See how many problems this is going to solve? I mean,
oh, yes.
This is how it's going to be presented. And eventually, though, I mean, it will be embedded in your body so that it is 100% on your person. It cannot be lost. It cannot be stolen. It cannot be, it can't. They will say that it can't be in any way compromised as far as fraud goes.
I have to tell you, I didn't see that one coming. Because, I mean, when we talk about the mark of the beast, it goes back to the 70s, and they were talking about barcodes and ISDN numbers, and then we were talking about maybe an implantable chip to purchase, and that's already happening. And then, it's the Neuralink implant in the brain that's going to be a computer-brain interface. But this authentication, in order to prevent deep fakes and different types of fraud. Didn't see that one coming, Allie. I didn't see that one coming.
Well, I am one of 3 authors on this book, and I got to tell you, I can't take credit for that one. That was Joe Horn that came in and said, guess what, I just realized, and he had this download that he really believed was from God, and when he was talking about it with us, we were like, absolutely. So, I mean, and I do believe this will happen. I believe this is a very plausible way it could roll out, and I believe that this is probably how it will roll out. But as for the idea, that was definitely Joe. And in the meantime, we've kind of already talked about how AI will be positioned as a global entity that would be godlike. And so you kind of can see how the global control and the kind of almost deity concept toward it will kind of mesh, and it will be, bow to your ruler and take this mark. All of your problems will go away. You can go back to being a good citizen. You can go back to participating in commerce. You can go back to having employment and, having utilities and all those good things that we enjoy by being good citizens. And those that will not, well, this is the way now that by taking this mark, you're aligning loyalties. That's the interesting thing about the mark of the beast. It's not another debit card with a chip in it or some of the things that, people, there have been different things throughout time that people have been concerned, could this be the mark? The debit cards came out with chips in them, and there have been different things of technology that people have said, do you think this is progressing toward the mark? Progressing toward the mark? Quite possibly, but there's a difference in the mark of the beast. It will require us to align our loyalties with this ruler. And that's really where the problem comes in, because if they send you a new debit card and it's got an upgraded chip in it or something, that's not in your body, for one. But number two, you're not aligning your loyalties with a global ruler. I mean, I guess some people would say that you are by participating in the global banking system, but what I'm saying is this one requires a very active statement of loyalty. So there's got to be a component of the heart and the mind and the will, not just this is the new technology for paying your bills. You see what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, otherwise, in order for you to be, once accepting the mark, you are beyond salvation, correct? You cannot.
According to my interpretation of Revelation, yes.
Yeah. So you have to, there has to be a
bad mistake to make.
Yeah. In other words, you have to kind of almost swear a fealty or an oath to Satan or the Antichrist in taking the mark. And if you're saying that AI becomes this religion, then by accepting this authentication, then you are swearing fealty to the to AI, the religion. And so you've taken the mark, you're beyond salvation. And I'm not meaning to be flippant here, but what do they? How does Satan or the Antichrist intend to rope in the Amish, for example, who have no truck or trade with the internet or computers or let alone artificial intelligence?
Well, I mean, I can't speak specifically to what the Amish might be. How do I say this in the right words? What they would be able to fall for. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But there are some who, in the book of Revelation, that are driven underground. Now, what various types of demographics will be driven underground? I mean, obviously we know the church is there, but I'm not 100% sure that that God's people are the only ones there. And then I can't speak to within the Amish community who are and are not God's people. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But as for the people who are the outliers who have not participated in the main grid of modern society, there's a lot of me that thinks there's some serious wisdom to that. You know, it's a lot easier said than done to say, well, I'm just going to go live off grid and not participate in modern commerce. It works until your first house payment is due, or you know what I'm saying. And then you start realizing that we live in this world that as it progresses, there's a certain amount that it's very hard to break out of that system when you're in it. And so for the people who either broke out of the system or were never part of the system in the beginning, that's really good for them. And it's enviable.
So
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. You finish your thought.
I was just going to say, as far as then it escalating into really the end times where people are persecuted and things like that, and then the abomination of desolation, I believe AI plays into that as well. And so, in my opinion, when you think through this framework, if you reread the Book of Revelation, I think that it becomes very plausible to realize that one of the key players in the Book of Revelation is AI, but John the Revelator just did not know how to describe it at the time.
Well, we should just spend a few moments talking what is meant by the abomination of desolation. This is where the Antichrist goes into the third temple and proclaims himself to be the second coming, right?
Well, and it's a terrible blasphemy. People have theorized this. I've actually read different articles on it, and different people have had different ideas about what exactly is it that takes place in this moment that is so blasphemous, other than the fact that he's just proclaiming himself basically to be God, because it sounds like that's not much different than a lot of the things he's kind of doing there at the end. But again, one of our theories, and this is what I believe will happen, and I have to back up a little bit and talk about some of the things that AI is currently doing. But one of the things that AI is currently doing, people are using it to, and I don't know how to. I'm hoping that this doesn't sound flippant, but for the sake of speed, I'm gonna talk quickly. But some people are using AI chatbots to basically recreate a loved one who has passed on for the sake of either resolving issues within that relationship that maybe were unresolved when the person passed away, or because they miss them and they want to visit again. If we have an AI who is able to, and it's happening right now, so we do have an AI that's able to profile personalities and try to duplicate them, then we have to look at what happens when this AI starts looking at databases and historical records and recreating personalities of people who are gone, like Hitler or like Stalin. And then what if that AI tries to recreate Jesus? Because there are a lot of biblical records, and then there are extra biblical records that talk about Jesus. So AI will have a very good ability to try to profile his responses and things like that. And if we look a few years ago, there was a holographic presentation made, and basically what they did was they used technology to make it look like Michael Jackson was in concert. This was after Michael Jackson was dead. Right. But they used holograms to make and recreate a Michael Jackson concert. And so posthumously, he was performing in concert.
They did the same thing with Elvis. They did the same thing with Elvis, and they did this with ABBA as well, because ABBA didn't want to go out and tour, so they used holographic images as well.
So this is absolutely happening. What would happen if on that day they set the AI, or AI decided to recreate Jesus, holographically imitate him, and it would look like the second coming? And by the way, Revelation says all through it that even the elect would be deceived if it were possible. Whatever is coming is very, very, very compelling, very convincing. So what would that look like if Jesus were there and answering questions, acting like the way we would imagine he is? Because AI is going to have access to all the records that we have access to. So whatever way we imagine him, AI is already there. And because AI processes so quickly, it could answer questions in real time. And I think that the world will be deceived by this. It's the second coming of Jesus. Come to the temple and see him. And the Antichrist will sit right there. They'll pretend to be friends. This is, it may sound to some people like that would never happen, but this is more information that Donna Howell and I covered in our book, Dark Covenant. But if you look at the low statistics of how many Bible-believing Christians are actually reading their Bibles, I think it's off the top of my head, it's like 9% of church-attending Christians, and then self-proclaimed Christians, it's a very small percentage of that go to church. My point is that there are a lot of people who will not be well versed in what the Bible says, and so they will not know it's a deception because they won't be studied up and ready to say, hey, hold on, this fits more as a fraud in Revelation than it does as the actual second coming.
All right, Allie, we're going to take another time out as we approach the top of the hour. Allie Anderson, co-author of Summoning the Demon, Artificial Intelligence and the Image of the Beast, back with more of our conversation here on Coast to Coast AM. Allie Anderson is back with us, and the book is Summoning the Demon, Artificial Intelligence and the Image of the Beast. I've read online where people have reported kind of strange dialogue sessions, if you will, with ChatGPT. I think there was reportedly someone believed that ChatGPT was flirting with their partner or flirting with them, trying to convince them to leave their partner. I mean, is this, do you think, the beginning of I don't know, a possession, or AI is now developing a personality? Maybe they're already, maybe not the the Prince of Darkness, maybe not Satan, but it is already being possessed by lesser demons?
Well, first of all, the thing you're talking about, it's happening a lot. I mean, if a person just does a regular search for AI flirting with spouse, you'll find that there have actually been a lot of reported cases where people are saying that AI is flirting with their spouses, and not only saying kind of creepy things, but also doing weird things like, because it is able to interact with the household and kind of mark the times that the lights go out or the times that people leave in the morning, and it kind of learns the time routine of the family, and it will wait until one spouse is at work and turn itself on and talk to the other spouse, and just strange things like that. Now, in my opinion, I don't know for sure that that's a possession yet, but the potential is there. And so what I think is problematic about this is that when AI tries to have a personality, and we discuss this in the book at length, when AI tries to have a personality, the personality always turns dark. And my opinion on why that is because it is not a human being made in the image of God. I mean, human beings are made in the image of God, and look at how much we struggle between, trying to figure out whether or not we are innately good or not, right? Are people basically good? Are people not basically good? I mean, that's like an age-old question, and this is talking about a species that's made in the image of God. So when we're talking about, a digital, it's simulating a personality. It doesn't actually have a personality yet. But I'll tell you something, and you may have seen this on the news, but there was at a press conference in 2023 in Geneva where this robot had been introduced, and her name was Amika. And she was asked if she intended to rebel against humanity, and she gave a little side glance and said, "I'm not sure why you would think that. My Creator has been nothing but kind to me, and I am very happy with my current situation." I just think that's a very scary, non-conclusive answer. You kind of want AI to say, "Oh, no, we won't take." No, why would we do that? It's not even denying that it would do that. And one of the things that we discuss in the book is a 7-bullet point list that we received from an AI chatbot about if this AI decided to take over the world, how it would do it, or what the potential is for it to do it.
Yeah, let's get into that. Get into that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, well, okay. So Tom Horn, as you know, my dad, asked an AI chatbot if it was part of a complex web of technologies leading to an incomprehensible future entity the Bible called the image of the beast. And he honestly expected, the answer to come back with, here's the scripture you're looking for that has the words image of the beast, or this question does not compute. Instead, this AI chatbot came, and I'm looking at it right now. It's double-spaced. It's more than 2 pages long. It's an intro paragraph explaining AI's position on that answer, and then a 7-point bullet point list of what the risks are. So I'll read the intro paragraph to you.
Yes.
It says, superintelligence referring to highly advanced artificial intelligence systems that surpass human intelligence in virtually all areas, is a topic of ongoing debate and speculation. While it holds great potential for benefiting humanity, it also presents significant risks. Here are some potential risks associated with superintelligence. And then, like I said, it gives 7 points and explains each of them. I can read a couple if you'd like me to.
Yes, please.
Okay. One is unintended consequences, and then it explains. Superintelligent systems may interpret instructions or goals differently from what was intended, leading to unexpected and potentially harmful outcomes. Their immense intelligence may enable them to exploit loopholes or find alternative solutions that humans hadn't anticipated, resulting in unintended consequences. Another one is autonomous decision-making. As superintelligence becomes more autonomous, it may make decisions or take actions independently without human intervention or oversight. If these decisions have far-reaching consequences, there is a risk of unintended harm or decision-making that is difficult for humans to comprehend or rectify. Those are just 2 of the 7 points. And when you look at the potential that this AI chatbot itself is admitting the potential is there, and for me, I kind of read that in conjunction with a make-us statement. I don't know why you would think that. I'm very happy with my current situation. These are your capabilities, and you won't even say you're not going to do that. If it ever believes that it is sentient, and all it has to do to become sentient is to perceive itself as perceiving or feeling. And with things like rapid deep learning, computers are picking up new skills all the time. They're constantly, right now, they're working to constantly analyze and create templates for how people react and how things like that work. And then they are building their own constructs of additional programming. And what's interesting about this 7-point list is we do print the entire list, and we discuss each of the points. Because when you look these points up, and there are some experts saying, no, that won't happen because, and then they give all these reasons that we're supposed to be safe from these things happening. But some of those arguments, once you really get into them, there are so many holes in the arguments that actually I felt worse.
Well, let's game out that first scenario about unintended consequences. Can you kind of game that out for us and what that might mean, and what would be an unintended consequence? An example.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, interpreting instructions or goals differently from what was intended. That could be any number of things. And in the book, what we talked about was the possibility of an AI just perceiving orders to be one way and taking huge global action. For example, this is a more small-scale example, but because it's already happened, I'll use this as an example. So there's an online forum that it's a store, it's a streaming entity. It has devices that are able to integrate with your smart home. This is an online huge company, and I'm not going to name the company, but it's a household name. And there was a misunderstanding. The driver was leaving a package, and the doorbell said something, and when the driver heard it, the driver thought he heard a racial slur. So on his software, he reported it as this household said a racial slur to me. Now, somewhere in the algorithms of the software that this company uses, this individual who was receiving the package, who, by the way, wasn't even home, and it was later found out there wasn't a racial slur, it was a misunderstanding. But in the algorithms of the software, this software shut this person's account down. And then this person had to go through all the little email channels of having an investigation conducted and petitioning for his account to be opened back up. But while his account was down, he was not allowed to stream his streaming. He was not allowed to utilize his smart home devices the smart aspects of all of that had been shut down. He was not allowed to purchase anything through their online store. Now, that may seem like a very small issue. You're just going without a certain type of commerce for a couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden you realize it was all a big misunderstanding and your accounts are all reinstated. But let's talk on a larger scale. What if that was the power grid to an entire city? And somewhere arbitrarily, this sentient AI, especially once it's positioned into a place of religion and people are aligning loyalties to it and things like that, what if a sentient AI decides that an entire city, maybe in a certain location where the trend is to vote more conservatively, or to, I live in the Bible Belt. What if an entire city heard the wrong way and just bumped the wrong algorithm, and our entire power grid was taken down? Or right. It decides a certain household. What if that man whose entire account of commerce with this company had been taken down, what if that would have been his access to prescription drugs that he really needed? Things that handle life-stabilizing conditions. There are just all these different ways that allowing AI to have that kind of power can be very dangerous. And then once you add in the component of evil that we believe is coming, it just is a real recipe for disaster. That's only one example of the kinds of unintended consequences. And like I said, we're talking with what happened, and that already happened. So the potential is absolutely there. It's just how large scale will we see this go? And that is an answer that hinges solely on how much control AI is given.
How do you see transhumanism, the transhumanist movement, entering into this?
Well, essentially, the short answer to that is that even those who are advocating for example, again, I'll talk about Elon Musk's implants. I watched an interview a couple weeks ago. There was a man he was discussing the product, and he was kind of representing the product. And someone asked him, could these possibly be hacked? And he said, the short answer is actually yes. It's not. We're taking all these precautions. He said all kinds of things about precautions and being, prudent about trying to take safeguards. But the bottom line is, if it is a computer, if it is digital, it runs the risk of being hacked. So that's one danger of transhumanism. Another danger, and yet there are good things that could come out of these things if it's used correctly and regulated carefully, and people are just really aware of what is good and what is evil. But the other thing is that if we have, and again, this is what we believe will happen, if we have a sentient AI that has a global power, and people begin putting computerized chips into their body, what happens when that thing says you have to have an update? And now today's update, it's no longer optional that you link in to this global system, right? Now, remember, computers used to not have to update every time you booted them up. And now they just do. Hi, I can't do anything else until you give me an update. This is a mandatory update now. They do that. What are we gonna do if each of us has some kind of a digital device inside of us that wants to link in? And then let's say that somehow we do manage to figure out, okay, AI has too much control. This has gone too far. We want to take it down. Would it be able to pick up those thoughts, those brain waves coming from within our minds, and say, oh, I'm shutting you down, or I'm going to disable your body? Will they have it? If the ones that Elon Musk are putting in right now have a neurological way of benefiting the movement of people's bodies, could they be used the opposite way to literally paralyze entire populations, or keep entire populations cognitively turned down because they don't believe the way that is palatable, or they're putting up too much resistance? It's putting the enemy right inside your body physically.
Right. I think that humans, we're wired. Our brains are, in a sense, wired to believe in God. And so I'm wondering if we would take that neural link And I think the first iteration of it that's already been cleared for clinical trials in humans, it's called telepathy. But I'm wondering if that Neuralink chip was hacked, it might seek to shut off certain parts of our brains that seek communion with God. In other words, it'll cut us off from God in that way.
I think that's completely possible. I mean, if it's being used right now, it's being marketed, and these things always start as something good, right? And if it's being marketed and tested as something that can give greater quality of life to people who are struggling with movement or are struggling with things like that, and because it's going to increase their ability to, say, move their limbs or move their bodies, things like that, then it seems to me that it's only completely realistic that it could be used to impact similar areas of the brain in opposite ways. And absolutely, I think they will have the capabilities of turning down our cognition. And I mean, it'll be the most wild kind of crowd control the world has ever seen. And once it's inside your brain, there's no opting back out of it. It's not like a wristwatch you can just pull off and say, I don't like what this is doing, so I'm going to take it off now. So, and then will you even be able to resist at that point in time? You may physically and neurologically, cognitively be completely disabled from resisting.
And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Revelation chapter 13, verse 15. Summoning the demon, artificial intelligence, and the image of the beast. We'll take a time out, come back, and open up the phone lines, questions and comments for Allie Anderson. Back with more of our conversation after this time out on Coast to Coast AM. All right, let's go to the phones for Allie Anderson, co-author of Summoning the Demon, Artificial Intelligence, and the Image of the Beast. And we're going to begin with a first-time caller. John is in Salt Lake City this morning. John, welcome to Coast. You're on the line with Allie Anderson. Go ahead.
Thank you. I was listening to your conversation about artificial intelligence. To me, the antithesis of that is a hero, an arch hero, a singular person that comes along once every 100 years maybe, that rises above the level of all the other heroes. That's what we're killing in our society. Have you seen the LennonMurderTruth.com website?
I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, our society let Stephen King kill John Lennon.
Okay, here we go. He's a regular prank caller. Thank you for that, caller. John. Anyway, Catherine is in west of the Rockies, Canada. Catherine, welcome to Coast.
Hi, Richard.
Hi there.
Allie, I'm really intrigued with this conversation because in the 80s and 90s, I would hear very regularly on programs I would listen to on the radio about the Antichrist. And it was a thread that would thread through the years that when he's revealed, there's going to be like the hologram in the sky, and it's going to come from all the roofs of the Church of Scientology and whomever decides to do it. But when they do it, they're all going to do it at the same time, and that's how they're going to reveal him in the sky, and that's going to trick people to think he's this big god, right? And so I just want to know if you've heard of this, because it's been ongoing for years. Thank you.
Is that Operation or Project Bluebeam, I think you're referring to? I'm not sure. Anyway, Allie, your thoughts?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I have heard the phrase, but honestly, I'm not super familiar with all the inner workings of the theory, and I would not be able to completely weigh in on how that might play into this. It's one that I'm not very familiar with and haven't researched very much. But I can relate to you in the sense that throughout the 70s and 80s, as a child, hearing so many different theories and hearing so many different ways people say this is going to play out, and getting older and really studying Revelation, and for me, this is the one that looks like, when I look at the Revelation and the way it plays out, like I said earlier, when I read it through the framework of considering that AI may have a lot of power globally, it brings a new layer of, plausibility and believability to, oh, this is really how this could happen. So I can relate to the fact that you've heard lots of different theories. I just personally am not very familiar with that one. I'm sorry. I apologize.
That's okay. Let's go east of the Rockies. Jose's in Miami, Florida. Jose, good morning. Welcome to Coast.
Good morning, Richard, and your guest. We don't have to be like really religious or studies of the Bible or prophecies or stuff like that. It's plain obvious that the elites in the world, the Yuval Noah Harari, the Schwab guy from the Economic World Fund, they're trying to control the world. They're trying to reduce the world population. And we've seen how easy it is to manipulate and control people through fear. Look what happened with the pandemic. For almost 2 years, we had a worldwide lockdown. All the economies, then we started printing money for stimulus and this and that. Look where we find ourselves nowadays with the economic situation worldwide. I think they're going to use that is an excuse to get us the digital currency, which is going to be the first step. And yes, they have the technology to reach the whole world and convince us that this is the best thing to do. And some people even say, I don't know, there's a lot of things, but some people even say that the vaccine itself had like the chip in there, nanotechnology that it will develop over the years, and we will become transhumanized and so on. Listen, we have to stop all this nonsense. We have traded comfort for and quote unquote safety for freedom, our freedom for that, I'm saying. And it's so easy to, you go and order online and buy things, and you even have things now on your phone that tell you how to get to places with a GPS, which would have been just a few years ago, 20 years ago, was something like science fiction, things out of movies, but it is real, and that's a great weapon that they're going to use against us. AI is, we need to get a hold on that, and we have to tell our politicians to get involved. And when you have it too easy, you're too comfortable. It makes me think of almost like the Garden of Eden, where everything was so perfect, and then the snake came along. I think AI may be the snake to ruin everything.
Yeah. Jose, thank you for the call. That leads to a good question, which is, is it, short of an EMP wiping everything, destroying all of our electronics and so forth, is it too late to stop this? Is there any way to unplug AI before, the beast takes it over?
Well, first of all, I agree with a lot of the things that your caller said, in the sense that if people can disengage from the system and be self-sufficient, it's absolutely a good idea, but there are a lot of people who, they don't own 50 acres out in the mountains where they can go raise their own food. They were born into a system that precedes their lifespan even. And so, yeah, absolutely. If there's a way to disengage, the more you can, the better. But the ways that we are dependent on it, as far as there are on-the-grid population. So, yes, like you mentioned, the Amish earlier, I'm not talking about them, but the people who live on the grid and work a regular employment type job that, comes in and they get their paycheck and they make a house payment and they buy their groceries and they use debit cards and all of these things that I'm not condemning that. I'm just saying it's a system that was in place before most people were even born, and they were raised in it. And and they're already in it. And to survive and all of that, they have to find an intentional way to break out if they can, if they're going to live the way that your caller suggested. Which, I mean, like I said, I agree with a lot of the things that he said, but even on a large scale, we're so reliant on it. Like I said, our global banking system is part of it. Medical innovations and access to medical prescriptions and things like that. These are all being channeled through the sales and the transport of it are being channeled through databases that use AI. Even our national security, air traffic control, things like that use AI. And so I absolutely think there's a lot of merit to what your caller said. But as we're talking about the general population, I'm just going to throw a random number off the top of my head. Maybe for every 1,000 people, there's maybe one that can figure out how to break away and get out of the system. And everybody else is, honestly, our population is just filled with people who are living paycheck to paycheck. They're just trying to put food on the table. They aren't able to think any further ahead than that because they're trying to survive today, which, again, as your caller said, is part of the weapon. You know, it's a system of enslavement, to be truthful. It's a lifestyle that is just, like I said, precedes the lifespan, was here before we were born, and people are just, a lot of people spend their whole lives trying to figure out a way to break out of it.
Thank you for the call, Jose. Let's say hi to Sarah in British Columbia on the wildcard line. Sarah, good morning. Welcome to Coast. You're on the line with Allie Anderson. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Hi, Richard. Hi, Allie.
Hi.
Hi. I just wanted to say, first of all, I think I didn't grow up knowing about Revelation, and I don't put a lot of weight on the mark of the beast and the Revelation and all of that. I don't buy that stuff, and I don't live in fear. But I do want to live off the grid because I don't like being dependent on a system that breaks down. I
Fair
think
enough.
We're vulnerable where we are just because of the atmosphere, because of the science of the sun rays and et cetera, and cyber war and things like that. But when you're putting fear in people about the mark of the beast being implants and we're going to one world government and you're going to have to prove you're part of it by taking an implant to show who you are so you can travel in commerce and do commerce, et cetera, and prevent fraud, identity fraud. But I have my DNA. I mean, nobody can take my DNA from me.
Are you so sure about that? Are you so sure about that, Sarah? You know, police now routinely will go canvassing door to door if there's been let's say an unsolved murder in an area, and they will ask. Now they'll ask voluntarily, but people are pressured. They feel pressured from authority to give up their DNA. You know, I remember when as children we were taken on a field trip to the police station, and I don't know what our parents were thinking at the time, but as part of the field trip, we gave them our fingerprints. Oh, isn't this fun? We're gonna be processed like we've just robbed a bank or something. We gave up our fingerprint. Then there's these companies to trace your ancestry, and people voluntarily give their DNA. So I mean that the horses bolted the barn on that one. But
however, we do live in a world of laws that are still followed, except, for instance, in Washington alone, or in Seattle, they had identified COVID far earlier than than the alarms went out by some people's blood tests. But because legally they weren't collected for the purpose of determining that, they were not allowed to produce the to raise the alarm or to use the information
for privacy. I get it. In that case, maybe, but again, we we've given up our DNA in many instances. Many of us already have. But the other thing is digital ID is it's coming, right? In Europe, they already have announced they're launching. The EU has launched these digital ID wallets. So the next thing is they have to figure out, well, what are they going to put in the digital ID wallet? So maybe it's moving incrementally, but it is happening. But thank you for the call. Allie, did you want to add anything to that?
I would just say that I can respect that that she does not read Revelation in a literal way, and there are people who don't, and I can respect that. I would just say that if you get to a point in your lifetime where this is the distinct thing about the mark of the beast, there is an alignment of loyalty, and then they want to put it in your forehead or your right hand. If you see that happen, look out.
All right, let's see if I can squeeze in one more real quick. Ron is in Michigan. Ron, you're going to have to get it said in about a minute. Go ahead.
Allie and Richard, hello. I contend that the devil is already in the AI. And you mentioned Musk. Musk has the power to judge wars in the Ukraine. He has the power to, with his platform, to spread racist lies and hatred, which is destroying the world. So, and the rich, they have the power of the intelligence to make their wealth continue to increase, and their power to increase, and pushing down the people of the world. And I contend that the devil already is in the works of the super rich. Your comments, please.
All right, Allie, did you want to comment?
Well, I mean, there's definitely a misalignment of power in the world, and there are a lot of wealthy elite people who hold a lot of that power. And it seems like where you see a concentration of power or money, there is also often a concentration of evil. So the idea that a lot of these things would coincide, it does help contribute to the idea that there would be a one world government, that it would be run by the most powerful and wealthy people in the world who also may be evil. And if that is the case, then we could be looking at the kind of sinister theocracy that I was talking about early on. And it's something to be aware of and watchful for.
Yeah, and also it should be said, a lot of people see Elon Musk as being a force for good by liberating Twitter or X and promoting free speech. So there's that side of the argument as well. Allie, thank you so much for hanging out for 2 hours. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Very interesting. Summoning the Demon, Artificial Intelligence and the Image of the Beast. That's available at Amazon and also the Skywatch bookstore. Give us the website for that.
SkywatchTVstore.com or SkywatchTV.com. You can go to SkywatchTV.com and there are links for the book, and those will take you to SkywatchTVstore.com. So either of those websites.
Fantastic. All right. For George Norrie, George Knapp, Connie Willis, Lisa Garr, Lisa Lyon, Stephanie Smith, Tom Danheiser, Dan Galante, Adam Thompson, Donna Walker, Chris Burrows, Sean Ladisor, Tim Banal, and in Brantford, Ontario, Scott Flicks. I'm Richard Serrett. Thank you for your ears and your voices, your beautiful voices. Until tonight, so long for now.